Welcome to episode 226 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Let It Slip edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm, as always, with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar, and a go-karting league racer himself. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, brother?
I'm doing great, Phil. Yeah, of course. Did do some league racing this weekend or this past weekend in karting, so we'll talk about that later. Pretty good experience there. So yeah, of course. Bit of a wet weekend again, but this time in NASCAR and sports car racing, of course. But yeah, lots of racing to talk about throughout all the main series that we cover.
Yeah, we got a busy show today or this week. IndyCar was at Laguna. They're going to now, after this, take off a couple of weeks to bring in the hybrid era in IndyCar racing, with Alex Palou being the winner of the last non-hybrid race. Cup and Xfinity was a Chris Bell show. Chris Bell also went and told everybody that Chase, which is Chase Briscoe, will be driving the 19 car, but I won't believe it until it actually is announced tomorrow, since we're doing this on Monday night. We'll talk about everything that went on in New Hampshire, the rain tire situation there. The Xfinity race was a last lap pass for Palou. It wasn't straightforward, even though he started on pole, but had to defeat a couple of them Andretti cars and held them off and had good pace there in a race that had a bunch of cautions, not as crazy as last year's finale. We have to talk about Fox taking over IndyCar, which I guess there's more of a subtext to it now after yesterday and IndyCar getting put onto CNBC and Peacock instead of being on USA because they had the rain delay. Spanish Grand Prix was fish lips. It wasn't initially fish lips because Woody actually got the start over Lando Norris, who qualified on pole, but in the end, 7th win out of 10 races for fish lips there. So Lewis Hamilton gets his first podium since Mexico last October. So ends that streak. So that was, 8 months without a podium there. Counting, of course, the off season, but still 8 months without a podium. Finally gets one. They'll be back this coming weekend at Austria. Busy roundup with the 6 hours at the Glen. IMSA returning after the Le Mans break. Indy next, doubleheader at Laguna. F2, F3, and F1 Academy at Barcelona. F2 and F3 will be back at Austria again this weekend. NHRA was at the Virginia Nationals. Huge accident for the legend John Force. They'll give some updates on that. Anthony Wayne Stewart actually had a good weekend. He was trying to do what he had did in the Cup Series and the Truck Series, getting his first wins in both of those at Richmond. We'll talk about MotoGP and Moto2 at Assen, one of the legendary circuits, and some more silly season news coming out in MotoGP for riders and where they're going to be going in 2025. Rally Poland, and then Formula E is going to be in Portland this weekend at Portland International Raceway for the Portland E Prix doubleheader. We'll preview the Austrian Grand Prix and make our picks, which will probably be behind fish lips, but who knows. NASCAR will have a triple header at Nashville. We'll see who has laryngitis this week in the NBC booth. Since it started with Letarte, went to Rick Allen, maybe it'll go to Jeff Burton this weekend. Truck Series will be back for the first time in a few weeks. We'll see who's announcing that. Hopefully not Jamie Little. Xfinity and Cup, we'll preview all three, make our picks. Josh will let us know about his karting exploits in the sim/karting segment, and then we'll call it a day. So let's start with Hello Palou. No Lee Diffie this weekend because of the Olympic trials. So it was, Kevin Lee as the lead play-by-play guy, along with Hinch and Townsend. Townsend was not as unbearable as he usually is, but he probably was licking Root Beer Floathead's ass after him and Romain Grosjean got into their 55th confrontation. I mean, both of those losers should just go and get into a boxing match and get it over with. I mean, let AJ Foyt at, what is he, 80-something years old?
I think 90 now.
Go and just bitch slap Romain Grosjean the way he did to Ari Lyondike. And then somebody, Agustin Canapino, can call a bunch of his Argentinian fans to go and like chair shot and like low blow Ferrucci, and then it'll be even. But in terms of people who actually run in the front, one of those people is Alex Palou, and he qualified on pole, but had to work through the field and battle the Andretti Autosport guys. Kyle Kirkwood initially, who got a great initial start, and then Colton Herta late. But in the end, Alex Palou gets the victory. Second victory in the last 3 years at Laguna Seca. Second victory of 2024, and puts himself into the points lead. And it's, he takes the points lead, and in his career, it's been pretty hard to get past him once he does get that spot. Winch power had issues throughout the weekend, but salvaged a 7th place finish. We'll give you the results here. Let's go with that. Alex Palou with the victory. Colton Herta second. Alexander Rossi third. Romain Grosjean in fourth, since they have to insist on emphasizing his stupid name. Kyle Kirkwood fifth. Scott Dixon, Power, Pato Award, Root Beer Floathead, and Marcus Ericsson rounding out the top 10. Felix Rosenquist started third and then fell back like he usually does. And Gilbert Gottfried, Nolan Siegel in his debut for Arrow McLaren, being like the 16th driver they've had this year in that car, started 23rd and finished 12th. So he was the best rookie on the day, just ahead of Christian Rasmussen. In terms of, there were 19 cars on the lead lap. Malukas making his return, driving for the Meyer-Shank team, started 12th, fell back to 16th. Newgarden was last car on the lead lap, got into some argy-bargy over the day because it's it's Joseph Newgarden. Why wouldn't he? There were only 3 cars that fell out of the race. 5 actually. Sorry, one was, the last 2 were late. Giotto at a wreck early in the race. VK and Harvey fell out with mechanicals, and then Graham Rahal got taken out in a wreck that was started by Kiffin Simpson. So there was Scott McLaughlin had a bad day, really bad day, along with Marcus Armstrong there. But yeah, I mean, pit strategy played a big role in this race. Palou, through the pit stop sequences, was having to get through and make passes on the likes of Rossi, Kirkwood, and Colton Herta. Josh, but in the end, there's a reason why he's a two-time champion, and now he's a points leader. He just has a habit of finding his way to the front, and also pissing off a lot of people because he's driving the Pride scheme for DHL this month, so probably setting off certain segments of the population with that too. But Alex Palou gets the victory, and with this incorporation of the hybrids and knowing that Ganassi is one of the teams, along with Penske, that has spent a lot of time testing this, it might be we might be looking at a repeat champion and 3 out of the last 4 years for Hello Palou. If people don't answer here immediately.
Yeah, this is a really interesting time in IndyCar right now. With we go into this race here, which is the last race without hybrids, and three-way battle for the points championship with Dixon and Palou and Will Power, and Palou comes out on top of it. And to add onto this kind of a parallel, it's a very he's very successful, been very successful at Laguna Seca, but it's also interesting because a guy named Alex driving for Chip Ganassi Racing beats a guy named Herta driving in a similarly colored car to 1996. So I thought that was kind of the interesting note. Although there wasn't it was, I guess, kind of a close battle throughout, but more on strategy, not really like on bonsai moves like what Mr. Zanardi did many years ago. But I thought that was an interesting note there on the finish there. But I think overall this might be a race, might be of a pivotal point in the championship, with Palou taking over it. There's still time, but now Will Power and Dixon and everybody else have to make up ground on Alex for the rest of the year. And now we're going into the hybrid area where there's going to be a lot of unknowns as they figure out in an actual race. Of course, they've had a lot of testing, so there is an advantage, especially like you said, for Ganassi, but it's another variable into the equation. So we'll see how this goes. And I guess the only thing for Palou I think that he has to be concerned about is the oval schedule at the end of the season. Obviously Iowa's got some changes to it. We still have Gateway to go to, and of course Milwaukee Mile back on the schedule, and then we're going to end the season at the Nashville Super Speedway. So some new tracks that we're going to here in the IndyCar series later in the year. So you have to wonder for Palou how he's going to be able to adapt to some of these newer circuits that we're going to, and one that's the surface has been dramatically changed in the corners. So it's not a easy set sail for Palou just yet, but it certainly does feel like it, I think, with how he came out here and won this race. And it was interesting how they stayed on the same strategy throughout the race. We saw guys going onto the alternates, onto the reds pretty early, but the Ganassi team with Palou, they stayed pretty set on their strategy, and they remained on the blacks as far as they could in that race. So obviously, it definitely paid off for him. And then at the end, restart at the end of the race with just a handful of laps to go, with 5 laps to go, wasn't anything that they couldn't handle, and they were able to basically run away with the lead there at the end, which I thought it might be close there, with late restart with Herta there as well. So thought maybe that could have happened, but really wasn't a chance that he was going to be able to get around Palou there, and everything. And Kirkwood, he also impressed too. That was a pretty good start for Kirkwood at the beginning of the race to grab the lead from Palou there, who was on pole. So obviously they had good pace early, but you could tell that they're fading in the middle of the run there, and then they tire strategy and all that, and kind of led to him being in the top 5. So yeah, that was a definitely interesting race. A lot of calamity throughout, but yeah, definitely a good result there for Palou and lots of other guys. So yeah, bring on the hybrid era for IndyCar now. Yeah, now we'll see and how that goes. And yeah, like you said earlier, the NBC era, now we're going to Fox, and this is one of the examples of why maybe we should diversify the networks that series are shown on, just because how they got kicked to the curb there at the end, because it was supposed to be like a triple header between IMSA, NASCAR, and IndyCar, and they got, because of the weather, they got shuffled out of it on the coverage, being on Peacock and CNBC there. So obviously Fox, next year, if they're in this situation, they shouldn't have any problems being able to put it on at the same time, and having the conflicts and all the staff and everything. So coverage itself, we'll see how that goes. But that was another observation that I had watching that, or trying to follow the NASCAR race and this at the same time. So that's what I thought there. But yeah, Palou is maybe a turning point here in the season for him.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point about the TV. And I mean, NASCAR, I don't know, we'll get into it here momentarily, but it seemed for a while like they were walking the dog into a rain-shortened victory for Tyler Reddick, but I guess they were walking the dog into going and using the rain tires. But in the process, instead of moving that race over, that ran over to CNBC or whatever, they decided to preempt the Indy cars that were coming on live, and then plenty of people were talking about it on social. It's like, well, that's the reason why we're going to Fox. And I'm like, Fox does the same shit with like the United Football League or whatever the heck it's called now, the Rocks Football League, and then they'll do it with baseball, and then they'll do it with the NFL. Well, actually, they're gonna end their season before the NFL starts, so then they're gonna get preempted by college football, I think, maybe by the end of the season. So it's like, you act like it doesn't happen. It's not going to happen with Fox because they're going to be on the network. The reality is the network thing is going to be what, a 2 hour, maybe a 2 hour and 2.5 hour window at most, at best. So it's probably like 15 minutes before the race or something, or they'll try to get, I wonder if they're gonna do it more like old school ESPN, where you had a little bit of lead in and then get going, and then you'll have a little bit of post race, because Fox isn't known for good pre and post race coverage. We don't know who they're gonna use. It sounds like the IMS Productions is going to have a big part in it, which is how they handle Road to Indy, including the Indy Lights. I mean, they do put it on Peacock with the Indy Lights or Indy Next or whatever. But I would say that Kevin Lee calling the race was hopefully a preview of what they do next year, because Kevin Lee is a long time IndyCar reporter. He's been at it. I mean, and he knows the sport. He knows all the players. He has a very calm, cool demeanor. I think Hinch, unless NBC tells him that they're going to use him for like NASCAR and then they're going to use him for IMSA or whatever, I really don't know why he would stay there. If Fox gives him a bag of money, Townsend Bell, I really don't care. He could disappear and my life would be better anyways. He sucks. He's just an old codger at this point. I mean, it's like he was good in lights and he had a career in kart, and then he did run some Indy 500s as a one-off, and he was solid, but like, you know, like go away. They could do better than him. Um, I mean, if Fox really wanted to get crazy, they could hire that dipshit Paul Tracy again. But like I said a couple of weeks ago, I think I was asking TK, meaning the original TK, Tommy Kendall, former guest on the show, and then also Ralph Shaheen, who was a guest on the show and will be coming back here in the next few weeks. Both of them about if Fox has called them, but nothing as of yet. So, I mean, curious to see what happens. Hopefully, it's not Adam Alexander. I really do not want that. You're going to have him as the guy calling the Indianapolis 500. It'd be freaking god awful. I mean, I'm pretty certain Miss Hummer will have something to do with it because she's already employed by Sky Sports. And she's a conspiracy theorist wackadoodle, so that makes her primed for their news network, let alone probably IndyCar coverage. But we'll see what happens. I don't have high hopes because I've watched Fox ruin NASCAR coverage for the last 25 years. The way that they've ruined coverage of like every sport that they touch. I mean, baseball's baseball. It takes for fucking, it's baseball. Football matters to me because I love the sport, and they suck. The only people I think that are worse than them is ESPN, but then ESPN has Fox's A team for how many years? NBC by far is the best in terms of production. I don't know about the announce team with Tirico and Collinsworth. When it was Al Michaels and whoever, it was better. CBS is meh, but whatever. We'll let it go. In terms of the points, 23-point lead for Alex Palou. 7 top 5s and 8 starts this year. Insane level of consistency. 2 poles, 2 wins, 7 top 5s, and that is the way to win a championship, I gotta say. Scott Dixon, his teammate, 32 points behind. That's really where the race is at right now for this championship. From like 20 points separate Herta and Alexander Rossi. And Florida scores a goal to go up 2-1 with just under 5 minutes to go in the second period. So Herta has a 7-point lead on his teammate, Kyle Kirkwood. O'Ward is 9 points behind Herta, 2 behind Kirkwood, and then Alexander Rossi is 19 points behind there. So you have Scott McLaughlin a further 10 points back, and you have Newgarden in 9th and Felix Rosenqvist in 10th. So that's basically where they've been points-wise for most of the season. I mean, yeah, McLaughlin, Newgarden got DQ'd, but they basically came right back. They've essentially run one less race, and they're 8th and 9th in points, but then, of course, they're Penske cars. They don't run the Owners' Championship points here. It would be really a good curiosity to see what the Owners' Championship looks like. If they show P1 award and like they should show those standings because the leader circle is big. The schedule, they'll have Mid Ohio in a couple of weeks' time. Then they'll run a doubleheader at Iowa Speedway. They'll run on Saturday night, and then they'll run Sunday afternoon, less than probably about 13 hours after the first race finishes. So I would definitely hate to be one of those team members, having to go and flip the car around and get it ready for what essentially is, I guess, an 11 o'clock start in Iowa. So yeah, that is really brutal. And then they'll run Toronto. So they'll run 3 consecutive weekends before the Olympic break. And that they'll only have, after that, they'll only have one more road course the rest of the season. They will run 2 races at the Milwaukee Mile, and then they'll run Gateway, and then, as Josh mentioned, Nashville to end the season, Nashville Super Speedway. All right, let's move to NASCAR. The guy who flubbed in his pre-race availability, his Friday availability. A good buddy of his is going to be driving the 19 car, or whatever number it'll be. I'm going to assume it's 19. I would kind of want it to be the 18, but that's just me. I'm an old school guy. Christopher Bell, when it was dry, was one of the best cars on the weekend. And then when it got wet and they ran them wet weather tires, Christopher Bell's car was pretty damn good too. It's one of probably his best racetrack in NASCAR. I think he's very happy with the likely news that Loudon's going to come back into the playoff, because it probably guarantees him a win, or a good chance at a win. And I mean, for Christopher Bell, though, a great weekend. We had the controversy of the 600, and it didn't. Oh wow! Oh, there you go. So that's news. I talk about that in the roundup as well. The USA Today 301. Christopher Bell led basically half the race. There were only 5 leaders in the race. Christopher Bell gets the victory, won stage 1 as well, over Chase Briscoe, Josh Berry, Kyle Larson, and Christopher Buescher. And that was the top 5. Tyler Reddick was leading when the rain started, but the tires took him out of that deal. Richard finishes 7th. John Hunter Nemechek comes back for 8th. One of 17 home tracks for Martin Truex's last race at New Hampshire, at least we think, is 9th, and Ross Chastain rounds out the top 10. Credit to Ryan Preece giving SHR 3 cars in the top 11, essentially proving a point that the SHR cars do better with wet weather tires than they do with slick tires. Take that for what it is. Briscoe was gonna go a lap down at the end of the first stage, but I think Bell did him a solid and let him go. And he was still dog crap for a good amount of the day. And the wet tires made his car a rocket ship. And the 4 car with Josh Berry was running pretty solid also, to be fair to him and Rodney Childers, but the wet weather tires gave him an opportunity, and he had a chance there. Honestly, had a chance to win the race. I mean, I don't think anyone was beating Bell, but he had chances on those restarts. So credit to Berry, both of those guys getting themselves closer to the cutoff in terms of the points, putting themselves in position to possibly win, which they need, which SHR they probably need to win to get into the playoffs. I think Briscoe really is the only one that kind of is in the mix points wise. Larson kind of went and salvaged a day. I think it wasn't his best didn't have his best stuff, but he was able to salvage a day, get a top 5. Busher at one of his tracks that he says is one of his least favorite goes out there top 5, while his teammate who has won at New Hampshire multiple times was nowhere. Reddick does the work for the 2311 camp since Bubba got used up by Gagson, and John Hunter, a rare top 10 for him. So, I mean, that's Todd Gillen was somebody who had a fast race car, and unlike his goofy teammate, he kept it all 4 corners on it and kept it clean, and he got a good finish. And he's, I think, 20th in points. So, in theory, he has a chance. I mean, points-wise, it's going to be tough, but he has a chance, and he's been the better. I think, honestly, McDowell has been the better driver on qualifying day. It's almost like he's no neck. Back in the day where no neck was great on Friday and he was disappeared by Sunday. McDowell's thing is he thinks Jesus is going to help him make these stupid passes, and instead Jesus tells him he's a moron and he goes and wrecks half the field. But he gets him, so that's why he has 64 kids. So whatever. You'd think that after you got out of that wreck at Texas, think the guy would know that you don't have that many more lives to give, you fuck. Hopefully somebody decent gets in that car because they get A level equipment now at the expense of Stuart Haas. So, I mean, the reality is Bell was the story because he flubbed on Friday. Then Bell became the story because he's just really damn good at New Hampshire. And frankly, he's good almost anywhere, but New Hampshire Motor Speedway, you add wet weather to the mix. I don't know how many hours of delay. They walked the dog on that deal. But the minute that green flag came back out, he went right up to the front basically within a couple of laps and basically didn't give up the lead the rest of the day, in part because of NASCAR dictating pit stops. But really, I don't think anybody was beating Bell yesterday, Josh.
Yeah, Bell's really good at the flat tracks, really, not just New Hampshire, but I think New Hampshire is probably his best tracks, with how he's performed in Cup and in Xfinity. But in general, he's just been really good on the flat tracks throughout his career so far in Cup. So look out for him, because he could have won at Gateway a couple weeks ago, but look out for him, in the playoffs when we go to another flat track and eventually to Phoenix. I think he easily is probably one of the top 4 at the end of the season when they go to the Phoenix to close out the year. But I mean, they were really on another level. They're better than most of the field in both the dry and the wet, but especially the wet. They made the observation on TV that all the guys with dirt racing experience know that the track conditions change on a lap-to-lap basis, and they know where to find grip and where to find the line most optimal for that corner. And that's what Bell was able to do. He could make his car work on the bottom, in the middle, or on the top lane there. So he knew how to get it done throughout that race, and he was just better than most of the field. I think that was out of the question there that anybody could really challenge him there. So obviously great win for him. Of course, sweeps the weekend, which I picked him, and I said he was going to win Cup, and then I just said Xfinity as well, and then Xfinity was a little bit different there, which we'll get into later. But man, I should have. That's the one we talk about, like taking these picks and trying to wager on them. That was one I should have done everything. So oh well, that's fine. But it's that's definitely when you pick the same guy twice. That's like really damn, you should have gotten that one, but whatever. But you know, Bell, I mean, he's definitely, I mean, surprising considering how kind of the last couple of weeks it seems like he's always kind of hot and cold, but then you look at his stats and he has 11 top 10s tied with Tyler Reddick for the most in the series so far. So it's kind of interesting how those stats kind of stand out to you and everything. Now he has another rain affected win. I mean, he won the Coke 600 as well, which is rain shortened. Now he has a rain delayed win now. So now tied, in a tie with Larson, Hamlin, and Byron for most wins on the year. So we'll see how they perform. But it was definitely an interesting race. And I agree. I think NASCAR need, if we're gonna have these wet weather conditions on short tracks, they need to be able to change the tires on their own. Makes for an interesting strategy if they decide to go on wets or slicks throughout the course where it's safe to run in the rain. Obviously, they're not going to run heavy downpour or anything like that. But with a damp enough track where it's okay to run the wet weather tires, they're going to do it. And if it gets dry enough to where the tires are wearing out, like what we saw with allegedly with Kyle Larson right rear going down, I think tires, they should allow them to change whenever they want to, not have to pick and choose for the teams when they're going to do it. So definitely that's hopefully next time they get in this situation, they'll allow the teams to do that or make a rule change. If it's in the rule book or something, then allow the teams to change the tires whenever they want when it comes to these conditions. So definitely do that. But I mean, the wet weather part, I mean, I think the racing was definitely different today or yesterday because of the urgency to get, with the weather and everything. And then also after when they decided to race in the wet, definitely was good racing throughout the field. And, I think it's just that the tire just matches up so well with the conditions and, with the asphalt. It's just so soft. It actually makes short track racing work for this car. And you talked about with the 41, the 4, and the 14 all in the top 11 there. I mean, those guys are all short track guys or dirt track guys, and they know how to, race on these type of tracks. And, that's why they finish up there, because they know how to actually, race on short track conditions. So that's definitely a factor there. But now we get into the summer part of the season where we're at a different track type, seems like every week. So, now got another concrete track coming up here. So, we'll see how this series, how we go on to next week.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how, I mean, prior to the Olympic break with all these different tracks, what comes up. I mean, for the short tracks, that's where the Fords or a lot of the Fords have their best chance. The 1.5 mile race tracks are usually Hendrick v. Gibbs. And then super speedways are a complete and total wild card. Road courses are kind of Hendrick v. Gibbs as well these days. So we'll see what happens with that. The point standings, I mean, Josh mentioned it. Bell now is in the mix with 3 wins. He is third out of the 4 drivers with 3 wins. Kyle Larson is tied with his teammate William Clyde Elliott II for the points lead. Of course, Larson didn't even race in the 600, and he's tied. Then let's go over there. I'll go and look at it that way. 40 points for those 2 guys ahead of Dennis Hamlin, who had an interesting day, to say the least, at one of his better tracks. Martin Truex Jr. minus 48. Hasn't won yet, of course, so we'll see. Once he gets there, it'll help his cause a little bit. 60 points to Tyler Reddick in 5th, and Christopher Bell's minus 65 in 6th. Byron and Blaney are all the cars right now, 8 drivers inside of 100 points. We'll go back to that. So yeah, those are the top 4. Then you have Clyde, Tyler Reddick, Blaney, Brad Keselowski. Those are the guys that have actually been useful this season, have actually run all right. Then you have the 2 cars in Suarez and Cindric that have been lucky to win, because otherwise they've been dog crap. Martin Truex is in 11th, Chastain 12th, Keebler Gibbs, Bowman, Buescher, and Joey Logano. Buescher has a nice 37-point gap on Joey Logano, who is at the cutoff. Jumps in because Dal Walsh Jr. got wrecked. So it's 13 points to Bubba. Then you have, 25? Yeah, 25 to Briscoe. And 45 to Kyle Busch, who's had quite an interesting month. I'm waiting for the meltdown to happen. Maybe Richard punched it out of him, because it's been in one of the worst months of Kyle Busch's career. With all the craziness that's gone on, he yesterday was running okay, and then it started. Or no, he wasn't running. My bad. He wasn't running good at all. He was back there with bald spot, tailback. Then somehow or another, something broke on his car. He hits the fence in 3 and 4, and he just parks the car right at the start of pit road. And then
I think he just, I think he just hit the wall and he's like, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, he might. It isn't out of the realm. Dude is plenty capable of doing that. I mean, I don't think it's a hasty generalization at all when you consider Kyle Busch, and kind of a lot of the passes that he's gotten over time for being what he is and being a douche. But yeah, they suck. And they're going to add a 3rd team, so take that for what you will as well. So that's the points. Heading to Nashville. I mean, as also what Josh mentioned in terms of the schedule, very diverse part of the season here leading into the Olympic break since NBC took over. I mean, if you could get all the way back after Charlotte, you had Gateway, Snoroma, Iowa, New Hampshire. The last 4 races, you have concrete, one in Cookie Cutter. You have a street course, Pocono, and Indy, which are basically have a lot of similarities to each other. Because, of course, now Indy is back to being the Brickyard 400. So that'll be interesting. Whoever runs well at Pocono the week before is going to feel really good about their chances at Indy, but we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, Josh, you mentioned it with the double and picking, and I mean, you do a really good job with these picks. I don't know why you hold out on yourself in this case. I don't think you wouldn't have a gambling problem if you put a couple of shekels on some of these picks you make.
Honestly, I just forgot. That's all.
Yeah,
I just forgot.
Yeah, that's a shame. That would have you would have gotten a nice parlay or whatever on the double there. But either way, Christopher Bell runs very limited races in the Xfinity series, but in this situation, at one of his best racetracks, goes and gets the victory, won stage 2, led 43 laps in the race. Cole Custer was really the dominant presence. He didn't win either stage, but led more than half the race, 114 laps. there were 3 drivers that led the majority of the race. It was Custer, Bell, and Carson Kvapil who started tailback and finished 5th. So I guess you can pass that New Hampshire. Also using some strategy, but credit to him. Cole, Justin Allgaier? So yeah, Christopher Bell with the victory. Sheldon Creed tying Dale Jarrett and Daniel Hemrick for the most second place finishes without a win in the history of the Xfinity Series. Gets passed on the last lap there. Cole Custer third, who got used up by Sheldon Creed. Justin Allgaier, Carson Kvapil, your top 5. The Ryan Sieg driving in the sponsor's car in terms of the sponsor of the race was 6th. Kligerman, Herbst, Alex Bowman in the 17, and then Corey Heim rounding out the top 10. There were 28 cars on the lead lap. D Burrito got DQ'd for lugs, and I think he ran all right, but he got DQ'd. Justin Bonsignor, the modified ace, making his Xfinity debut, got a rude awakening of what NASCAR racing is in the major series, but ran well prior to getting used up on restarts. One of the best mod guys there is. Can drive anything. Kind of sounds like Ryan Preece. And Preece and him have been, he said, Preece was saying that they've been talking for, months about him making this debut. So, Bonsignor, one of the best up here in the Northeast, got an opportunity. Unfortunately, didn't get to show it in terms of the final result, but he did lead laps. He was out there. He had an opportunity, so that was cool. Bell gets the win at the expense of Sheldon Creed. That restart there, getting the restart because of the 14 car Mason Massey spinning out. You had a couple of late cautions there. There were, in the span of, I guess, from lap 169 to lap 201, you had, 5 cautions? And yeah, so that kind of made it pretty shoddy. I mean, there was the big wreck on with 12 or 15 to go or whatever. 12 to go. And it took out a bunch of cars there. But yeah, I mean, Christopher Bell going out there and getting the victory is definitely not surprising. You called it. Custer, yet again, left wondering when is he going to get a win. Though I don't think he's wondering where he's going to be driving next year. But yeah, I mean, he still leads the points, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, Bell gets the double, gets the sweep.
It's New Hampshire, baby. That's what he'll say, referencing Dale Jr. in Bristol and everything there. But yeah, I mean, this was a different, hinting toward what we were talking about earlier. I mean, this is a bit of a different win for Bell, and grabbing the win with some argy-bargy from Creed, trying to go for his first win there, and Cole Custer winning, or trying to go for another win while it's still Stewart-Haas racing in the Xfinity Series there. So those two getting into it, that opened the door for Christopher Bell to go in 3 wide on the last lap and take the lead and steal the win there. Although he was up there, so it wasn't like it was a total surprise, but definitely watching that, he's in third on the last lap, probably not going to win, and the other goes out and makes that happen there. So yeah, that's definitely a bit of a different result there for sure, but not surprising. Now he's 4 for 4 in consecutive Xfinity starts there. So yeah, he gets the win. Of course, Carson Kvapil, that's pretty impressive win or not win, but top 5 run there. Running good there in the 5th Junior Motorsports car there in the Star car. So yeah, he's getting more starts, and I think he'll probably be full time here in Xfinity pretty soon, given how he's been running here for Junior Motorsports. So yeah, we'll see how he does there, and everything. And yeah, Sheldon Creed definitely close to getting another one, or first win, but he's got to figure out how to, because I think if he would have gotten around Custer there cleanly, I think that would have been his race. But they just kept fighting each other there at the end of the race, and yeah, now still in good position to make the playoffs. But it's definitely time for him to start winning in Xfinity finally. So yeah, that was definitely a entertaining race for sure. And yeah, the big wreck like you talked about. Yeah, definitely the 8 car getting around, and then got a car up in the air there throughout that. So that was a really interesting wreck to see. But yeah, we've seen that type of wreck before, where on the backstretch of New Hampshire, where somebody gets turned and then the whole field gets stacked up. So very interesting one there. And yeah, they were also on the wet weather tires there, but I think at the beginning of the race, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, definitely seen these tires be used throughout the weekend on both series. So kind of like that they're trying this out with the wet weather tires, and everything actually kind of makes NASCAR a little bit more interesting than it already is. And definitely like that they're able to take that chance and at least get some racing in, as long as it's not too wet and everything. So now we'll go to I guess they're going to Nashville as well. So I'm sure there's going to be more double. Maybe there'll be another chance for somebody to double up next weekend. We'll see. But yeah, it was definitely a bit of an unexpected. I mean, I was picking him just cause, but definitely didn't I thought he would just dominate and win like he did in Cup, but I had to go and win there on the last lap for sure.
Yeah, it was. I mean, in the end, Gibbs won too, which isn't shocking. But Bell having to get it there late, not usually what he's had to do in his Xfinity career at New Hampshire. So credit to him on that. Custer continues to lead the points. He's 15 points ahead of Chandler Smith, 42 ahead of Justin Allgaier, and 68 ahead of Hank Hill. And then after that, everything's over 100 points. Creed, Herbst, Love, AJ Allmendinger, Kligerman, Sam Mayer round out the top 10 in overall points. In terms of the playoff points situation, you have, what is it, 4 drivers with 2 wins: Chandler Smith, Austin Hill, Sam Mayer, Shane Van Gisbergen. Then you have Allgaier and Jesse Love. Custer leads the points but doesn't have a win. Creed, Herbst, Allmendinger, Kligerman, Sammy Smith is your cutoff, plus 31 over Ryan Sieg. Anthony Alfredo's minus 72 behind Sammy Smith. So that's essentially where they're at. Mentioned Stuart Haas, or Cole Custer and where he's going to be. Gene Haas announced over the weekend that he's going to keep one of the charters of the 4 that Stuart Haas has on the mark. Well, now it's three, but really 2, because Front Row is one of them. So 2 more on the market. Gene Haas is going to keep one, so likely we would think that Cole Custer comes back to the Cup Series based on that. And then they'll have 2 Xfinity cars, so that means Riley Herbst will probably, as long as I guess if it's a Ford, then Riley Herbst will still be around. If it isn't a Ford, then who knows what it'll be. But venture to say they'll probably go to Chevy, because when Gene Haas initially started his team or GM team. So probably he'll go back to Chevy, get some Hendrick help, or maybe he convinces Junebug and Kelly to get into business with him. Who knows? He did drive, of course. Custer did drive for JRM in the Truck Series back in the day, being the youngest winner in Truck Series history. That's still, I believe, the case. But yeah, so that was one piece of news. Yeah, Sheldon. Hey, yeah, and yeah, so that was the points. Calling that. All right. We will move now to the Formula One Spanish Grand Prix. Fish Lips gets the victory, shocking absolutely nobody. His 7th win in 10 races. So that's interesting to certain people, but for the race itself, I mean, initially he didn't have the best start. Woody got a good start because of the draft effect down the long front straightaway. Lando Norris got a bad start, and that really put his day in basically he was screwed right at the start there. Fish Lips passing him, then Russell being a basically dead weight. Once Verstappen gets the lead, you're not really going to get by him unless something weird goes on. And it was similar to Imola, where late in the race, Lando was coming along with the multiple pit stops, and he had a faster car there late, but wasn't able to close the deal. We go and get into the results of the Spanish Grand Prix. Fish Lips gets the win by 2.2 seconds over Norris. Sir Lewis Hamilton gets his first podium since Mexico last year. As I said, he was a further 15.5 seconds behind Norris and 17.8 seconds behind Verstappen. Russell was in 4th. Leclerc, Sainz in 5th and 6th. Oscar Piastri, Sergio Perez, and the 2 Alpines of Gasly and Ocon round out the top 10. Nico Hulkenberg falls just short of a point for Haas. And then everybody else was either a lap down, it was a lap down, or in case of Logan Sargent, 2 laps down. So yeah, Russell had the initial lead. Verstappen took the lead for a period of time. Then Norris stayed out. They kept on swapping the lead, and then lap 48, Verstappen takes the lead and holds on for the rest of the race. I mean, in terms of the battle, it's becoming, I guess, what the status quo now is going to be. Fish Lips versus his buddy Lando Norris. Debate is there. Does Lando Norris have the faster car right now? And if so, is he really capitalizing on that? Or is it still Fish Lips and Red Bull until further notice? I was asked a similar question by Tom Downey on the Grid Talk, and I said it'll be Red Bull and Fish Lips until they change. Basically, they change the regulations in 2026. I don't really care that other teams may be fast or have fast cars. You're not stopping that team and that group and all that. So, what are your thoughts on the Spanish Grand Prix there, Josh?
Well, it's an interesting thing with that question, which to me, is it's still the era of Red Bull, and it might be still the era of Red Bull, but is it the era of Red Bull winning by 20 plus seconds every race and, Verstappen basically being unchallenged throughout races like he has been, since 2022? I would say no. I would say yes. I think that era is over. But is it, where they're still winning, but they're having to be challenged, and it's not as easy? And Verstappen, who said he's basically having to drive at 110% with how their cars are right now, and compared to him, how Sergio Perez has not been doing as well, but he's having still the same amount of effort. I think that era of Red Bull winning still is in play, but they're definitely having to work a lot harder now for their wins. And I think you saw that on Sunday with especially the beginning of the race. They didn't have the lead, but then Verstappen was able to overtake Russell there early on, and then it was a battle of tire strategy between him and Lando Norris. And of course, Lando had a 6-lap different between him and Verstappen, and he had the tire advantage at the end. And he was, obviously, if he had a couple more laps, could have won that race. But for Verstappen there, definitely not as easy as as has been. So maybe this weekend at the Red Bull Ring, when they go to the Austria Grand Prix, maybe it'll be easier, because I'm sure they'd want to dominate their home race. But certainly right now, I think McLaren's right there on their tail in terms of being able to really challenge him. I don't think they're gonna Lando's gonna go in some big run and steal the championship away. But they're definitely, Red Bull's definitely on notice right now for sure. So I think as the things continue to change here, and as McLaren continues to improve, and Red Bull's losing Adrian Newey. So as that continues to go on and we go into these new regulations, I think there's definitely going to be a change here, and I think that we're starting to see some of that play out now and everything. So I think for Lando Norris, it's definitely missed opportunity once again to win a race. They should have had a better start than he did. Needed to have a better launch there at the beginning, and then trying to kind of do what Max kind of does at the start of the race definitely cost him some more momentum, and then that gave a big draft there for George Russell to go and take the lead on the outside there. And then also final pit stop for Lando Norris, definitely lost some time there in the pits. Bit of a slow pit stop. I think he lost maybe a second or so there at the end of his pit stop. So that definitely made it more difficult for him to try to mount a challenge to Verstappen, but still ended up finishing 2.2 seconds behind Verstappen there. So it was a missed opportunity for him, and he'll look back on that as one thing he could have had. But I definitely, like I said, definitely think Red Bull's on notice right now, and McLaren, they're definitely making it known that they're here to challenge Red Bull throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I figure the championship and the constructors are, because of Fishlip just winning as much as he has, is out of play, but there is hope for the rest of the season, depending on upgrades and stuff, that it could be compelling, and depending on the track. Ferrari has fallen back here recently, but I don't think that they're going to continue that way. I feel like they're going to upgrade. Mercedes, it seems like, have maxed out certain things with their car, and then you add the fact that Lewis isn't going to get all of the best stuff, even though finally, after accusations of sabotage, as William Shatner would say, he all of a sudden was able to have a decent qualifying run, and then he was able to actually have a race where he goes and gets a podium. They gave him a different strategy from Woody, and somehow or another, it was the right one. So we'll take that. Take moral victories in that sense. The points after the Spanish Grand Prix is 20. What is it? 69. And 50 and yes, points. Verstappen leads over Norris. Norris has a 2-point lead on Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz is in fourth, 5 points ahead of Sergio Perez. Oscar Piastri 6 points ahead of George Russell. Lewis Hamilton in eighth, 11 points behind George Russell. Alonso and then Yuki Tsunoda 2 points ahead of the moron that is Lance Stroll. Ollie Bierman has more points in Formula 1 than he does in Formula 2, and he only raced once. That's pretty bad. Right now, only 3 drivers haven't scored points this year. Both drivers for kick, punt pass, and kick slobber, and then Logan Sargent. And Logan Sargent, it sounds like from what I saw on the socials, is in advanced stages of moving to IndyCar since he's not going to be in Formula 1 next year. Carlos Sainz, it seems like in an 11th hour move because of Flavio Briatore, might get the call back to the Endstone team in Alpine, because his options, if he doesn't do Alpine, or he either has to go to the Audi, which it didn't seem like he was interested in. Williams was what everyone was talking about, which would be horrendous for him. And then Alpine, which is basically a 1 step down instead of 2 steps down. But we'll see what happens with Carlos Sainz there. The teams is 60 points. Red Bull over Ferrari. And then there's a 33 points between Ferrari and McLaren. Mercedes in fourth, Aston Martin fifth. Toro also in sixth. And then Alpine is a point ahead of Haas. And then Williams has 2 points to make their ninth. Alrighty, let us move to the 6 hours at the Glen. Interesting weekend. Weather affected at Watkins Glen. Bucket list race for me. One of these years, I'm gonna be able to get the money and be able to do it. But wasn't this year. Unfortunately, missed out. But in the end, the number 7 Porsche, Felipe Nasr, Dane Cameron, their second win of the season. They also won the Rolex 24 at Daytona. So big deal for those guys. Helps them in points in terms. So the, why are they showing the practice? I don't want practice. I want event champ. What the heck? That is so. They have such a bad website, IMSA. I might just go and do it that way. Trying to speed through this deal, and they make it virtually impossible. Sports cars. Yeah, so then can't. Okay. So yeah, Dane Cameron, Felipe Nasr win for Penske Porsche over Renger van der Zande and Sebastian Bourdais in the Ganassi Cadillac. And then the Porsche teammates, Nick Tandy, Matthew Jaminet, round out the podium. Jordan Taylor, Louis Delatraz qualified on pole for the race, finished fourth. There were 6 cars on the lead lap. The 2 BMWs rounded out those lead lap cars. And Jimmy Bruni, Bent Viscal for the Proton competition Mustang sampling Porsche was 7th, and 8th was the Cadillac, the Wheel and Engineering Cadillac, and the home game for the sponsor, Pippo Durrani, who announced he's going to be leaving that team after this season. Jack Aiken and Tom Blomqvist, the drivers there in 8th. Then Nicholas Nielsen, Lilo Wadu, and Luis Perez Kompanek in the Richard Mille AF Corsa LMP2 gets the victory in that class, finishes 9th overall, gets the CrowdStrike Racing team, Colin Brown, George Kurtz, Toby Sowery, and then Gar Robinson, Felipe Fraga, Josh Bourdon round out the podium, finishing 9th through 11th. They were all on the same lap as those 2 prototypes, or GTP cars. The scroll through the GTD Pro winners were Ross Gunn and Alex Riberas for Harder Racing, Aston Martin, over Oliver Jarvis and Kirk Hoffer for Pfaff Motorsports McLaren, and then Antonio Garcia and Alexander Sims for the Corvette Pratt and Miller team round out the podium in that class. And then in GTM, is it? I have to confirm that through. Aston Martin for his last lap victory in GTD Pro, and then Philip Ellis, from so that's what it, Philip Ellis wins, Russell Ward, Donch J, I guess, in the Winward number 57 Mercedes, over Elliott Skier, Jan Halen, and Adelson in the Wright Motorsports Porsche, and then the Conquest Racing Ferrari rounding out the podium there. New York State's own Andy Lally, his buddy Spencer Pumpelly, what is it? Ryan Eversley's bestie, and then John Potter. They were close, the Magnus Racing team, to getting on the podium there for GTM. The points standings for the drivers in GTP: Dane Cameron, Felipe Nasr lead over Van der Zande and Bourdais, and then Nick Tandy and Matthew Jaminet. Interestingly, the top 4 in this race are the top 4 in points. In GTD Pro, Lauren Heinrich and Sebastian Prio lead over Hawksworth and Barnicoat, and then Ross Gunn is in 3rd place by himself. And then there's in GT Daytona, Russell Ward and Philip Ellis lead by over 300 points on Robbie Foley and Patrick Gallagher. Then Parker Thompson is in 3rd by himself. The Conquest Racing team are 4th, and then the Mike Skeen and Mikhail Grenier are around out the top 5. Then in LMP2 drivers, Gar Robinson, Fraga, and Bourdon lead by 6 points over Dwight Merriman, Ryan Diallo, and Connor Zilic. So that's and then for the Schmikowski, Bould, Tom Dillman, they're in third place. So there you go. 40 points separating those three teams. So that's it for the points. And they'll be off for a couple of weeks before going to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. It won't be, I think it's GT. What is it? The next event details, it'll be the Chevy Grand Prix. We'll have LMP2, GTD, and GTD Pro and GTD will be at that race. So no GTP cars, at least, for the next race. So they'll have a break after having to come back. Some of those teams having to come back from Le Mans, go to Watkins Glen, go there. All right. Indy next was at Laguna Seca, and it was Louis Foster getting the double and taking over the points lead in the process. Had pace the whole weekend, had no real issues. Won both races going away. So through out of the last 4 races. In race 1, he won by 8.24 seconds over Kyle Collette. Jacob Abel gets the last podium spot, in part because Yuvan Sundaramurthy, his teammate, got cleaned out by the dumb whore Lindsay Brewer, who doesn't know how to use her mirrors unless it involves her putting on makeup. James Rowe rounds out the top 5. Miles Rowe, different spelling, 6th. Christian Bogle, Christian Brooks in his debut for HMD, taking over the car that Nolan Siegel was driving, finished 8th. Jamie Chadwick, coming off of her first win, was 9th, and then Jack William Miller rounding out the top 10. In race 2, I mentioned Louis Foster got the win. Only won by 4.3 seconds, 3.9 seconds this second race, but was equally able to dominate, led all the laps. Kyle Collette second. Again, Bryce Aaron comes through for third. Yuvan Sundaramurthy gets a 4th place finish. Jamie Chadwick finishes 6th. Abel finishes 11th, so he loses a bunch of points in the process. Miles Rowe finished 2 laps down. Reese Gold had contact. James Rowe, ROE, mechanical, and then Jonathan Brown was had issues as well. So the points heading to Mid-Ohio in a few weeks' time. Foster has a 35-point lead over Jacob Abel. Kyle Collette well back in third. Miles Rowe a point ahead of Jamie Chadwick in the battle from 4th to, I mean, you think you can go all the way, 4th through 7th is only separated by 8 points. Rowe, Chadwick, Hedge, and Reese Gold. And then there's that gap because Siegel isn't racing anymore. Salvador D'Alba and James Rowe rounding out the top 10. You have Bogle, Brown, Sundaramurthy. There's 19 points there. So, yeah, there's pretty close. See how that all works out. F2, F3, F1 at Barcelona. We'll start with the open wheel Formula 3, or actually we'll do F1 Academy first. They raced at Barcelona for only their second round of their season. Their next round will be Zandvoort in 2 months' time. And then they'll race again at Singapore. See if they don't have the results there, of course. So we'll go to F1 Academy. There you go. The big news from that's right. They also raced at Jeddah. They had 2 months between races there, and they had a month between that. Then they have another 2 months because that's just the way to do a calendar. The results of the races: Abby Pulling got the race 1 win, and then Chloe Chambers, the American driving for Haas, got the win in race 2. Let's bring it up. So in race 1, Abby Pulling over Nerea Marti and Chloe Chambers getting the podium. Bianca Bustamante and Hamna Alcabasi rounding out the top 5. Leah Block got a point, so that was good for her. And then in race 2, she did better. So the 2 Americans had solid results. Leah Block, Chambers gets the victory by nearly 7 seconds over Abby Pulling, and Hamna Alcabasi was 3rd. Nerea Marti, Dorian Pan, Leah Block was 6th. So good job for her as a rookie in an open wheel category. The standings right now, Abby Pulling has a huge point lead. Basically, was it 66 points over Dorian Pan and Chloe Chambers. They're tied for second. Then you have Nerea Marti, who's got 6-point lead over Bianca Bustamante and an 8-point lead on Hamna Alcabasi. Right now, Leah Block is 4 points out of 9th and 12 out of 8th. So that's what her battle is, to try to finish in the top 10 in points around some of them other drivers that may not be as good, or definitely are just kind of like filling the field. As Leah keeps on getting experience, she went the first 3 rounds without scoring a point, and now has scored points in 3 consecutive, or first 3 races, and then the last 3 races has scored 10 points. So that's good progress for her. The F3, see if F3 is updated. Yeah, that is. In Formula 3, in race 1 was Mary Boya, home victory for him. Don Gotha was a podium. I should just do it off of the Formula 3 website. Why is it caps? Formula 1. Yeah. I should have just done it that way. We'll go and bring up the results from sprint race. Mary Boya, as I mentioned, the winner in the sprint. I don't want the report. I just want the results. Don Gotha. I don't know if Max Easterson finished 22nd. in the race. Trying to see who else. Yeah, that was the 25th. Then in the feature race, Arvin Lindblad getting the victory over Christian Mansell, Luca Fornaroli. Let's see, Sebastian Montoya was 12th. Mega Tunif there. Yeah. Easterson was 23rd in that's second race in the feature race. So the standings going to Austria, Luca Fornaroli has a 5-point lead over Browning. Gabrielle Mini went without any points this past weekend, so huge points lost. So 5 points to Browning, 12 points to Mini. Arvin Lindblad with a win and small points in the sprint race gets himself to within 13 points. Boganovic 19 points. Gotha 21 back in 6th. Boya, after his win, gets himself up to 9th in points. Sebastian Montoya is 17th. Easterson's 22nd. He's the last driver who has scored points this year. And that was literally in the first race of the season. Has not scored since. So take that for what it is. In Formula 2, the results was big weekend for the Americans in Formula 2. In the sprint race, Victor Martins got the victory, but initially was a why am I forgetting his name now? Juan Manuel Correa was on the podium, but he got a time penalty and dropped down to 8th place. Victor Martins, Kushmini, Paul Aaron, the podium. Jack Crawford finished 4th. Bortoletto 5th. After reorganized everything, and then in the feature race, Jack Crawford over Franco Colapinto, and then Juan Manuel Correa. So the Dams team gets a double podium, 2 Americans on the podium. Paul Aaron 4th, Isaac Hadjar 5th, Kushmini 6th. Was Enzo Fittipaldi was 11th, and Kimi Antonelli was 12th. I mentioned Ollie Bierman, and he was 14th. The standings right now, Paul Aaron has a 9-point lead on Isaac Hadjar, 25-point lead on Zane Maloney. Jack Crawford moved up to 4th in points with his big weekend, 30 points scored. This past weekend for Crawford. Hauger rounds out the top 5, tied with Colapinto, Bortoletto, Miney in 8th. So they're only separated by 6 points. Antonelli, 8 points. Zach O'Sullivan, 16 points back there. Yeah. Juan Manuel Correa moves himself up to 12th. And last 3 races, he scored 26 points. So that's where he's been able to get himself back in the mix a little bit. And right now every driver that's in F2 has scored some points. So that's interesting. And so we'll see what they do in Austria. The NHRA Virginia Nationals, I mentioned it. John Force, the massive accident that he had. I mean, he's been on fire from here to Australia. He's had huge wrecks over his career, but one of the worst wrecks of his career for sure. And hopefully he'll be all right. Don't see anything in regards to updates, but the results from the Play NHRA Virginia Nationals in Pro Stock Motorcycle, Gage Herrera beats his teammate Richard Gadsden. Shocking absolutely nobody. Broke the consecutive rounds one record that was held by Bob Glidden going all the way back to 1978. Shows how crazy it is. Dave Schultz was close to it, and that Dave Schultz used to ride for Vance and Hines, of course. In Pro Stock, Aaron Stanfield over Dallas Glen. In Funny Car, Austin Prock gets the victory after everything happened with John Force, so big win for him over Bob Tasca. And then in Top Fuel, it was an all Coletta final. Doug Coletta gets the victory over teammate Sean Langdon. Standings as they head to Norwalk this coming weekend. Coletta has a 67-point lead on Sean Langdon. Justin Ashley is minus 108. Torrance fourth, Antron Brown fifth, Schumacher, Torrance, Clay Milliken, Tony Stewart, who got to the semifinals and lost to Doug Coletta, is ninth in points ahead of Brittany Force. So those are the top 10. As long as he stays in the top 10, he's in the play. He'd make the countdown. So we'll see with that. In Funny Car, Austin Prock has a 131-point lead over John Force. Matt Hagan third, J.R. Todd fourth. Those are drivers under 200 points. Behind Bob Tasca in fifth. Close race somewhat, 30-something points for between Blake Alexander and Paul Lee. Bruce Pentragon a little bit behind there. So those are the drivers that are racing for that cutoff. In Pro Stock, Dallas Glen has a 40-point lead over Greg Anderson, his teammate, and then Eric Enders in third, Jed Coughlin Jr., fourth, Aaron Stanfield in fifth. So three of the elite cars behind the two KB Titan cars. Jerry Tucker is part of elite, so that's, what is it, 5 cars. You got Troy Coughlin Jr., yeah. Those are, and then Quadras also, yeah, so mostly elite cars, but I'm trying to remember who the other, because it's Greg Anderson, Dallas Glen, and I forget who the other car is in the elite, or I mean the KB Titan team, but I forgot, whatever. And then in Pro Stock Motorcycle, yeah, it's Gage Herrera. Gadsden has a 3-point lead on Matt Smith. John Hall is fourth. Chase Van Zandt, Angie Smith around, it was fifth and sixth. They're a close battle. Hector Rana, Gianna Evaristo, Ellie Tonglet, and Steve Johnson rounding out the top 10. Right, was it a minute 35 left? Florida still up 2-1, looking to get their first ever Stanley Cup in their franchise history. They came in 1993, same as the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. So, Anaheim got a Stanley Cup a few years ago. So that it'll be something here. The goalie just went out So they have the extra skater. Minute left, last minute. If they don't score, of course, Connor McDavid try to get through. They ice the puck there. They don't call icing. 47 seconds left. They're trying to get in. They sent it into the behind the goal. Florida trying to get that insurance goal and put it away. They almost did there. But Florida, oh man, that was blocked. So that was another 23 seconds to go. One last chance. They're holding. One last chance for Edmonton after coming back from 3-0 down. It looks like the Florida Panthers are going to save themselves from an epic collapse and win the Stanley Cup. Yes, they have. The Florida Panthers, Paul Maurice, get the Stanley Cup. Well, I don't know how many teams he's taken to a Stanley Cup victory, so credit to the Florida Panthers preventing what could have been one of the worst collapses in the history of sports, losing a 3-0 lead in the Stanley Cup Finals. So credit to them. John Forson, truck driver, terrifying crash, and at least an overnight stay. Crash brought back memories. That's 50. The time the full extent was not public, highly doubtful to make it to Norwalk, which set off an instant amount who might fill in or important to him as long as he's sidelined. Tommy Johnson Jr., Jack Beckman, Jeff Ferrando, hopeful, wished hard that one of his former driving daughters would hop back, as is Robert Hyde capable of getting back on car yet. Well, yeah, so that we'll see what happens with John Force this coming weekend. If he's able to, well, obviously he's not going to race, but who will be driving the Peak Chevrolet this coming weekend? MotoGP will be back, and news: Marco Bezzecchi will be riding for Aprilia. Making a whole new team. So 2 Ducati riders, Jorge Martin and Marco Bezzecchi, move to Aprilia. So brand new lineup for them. You're going to have the confirmed, so Quartararo, so Quartararo was thinking about going to Aprilia, but instead stayed. Okay. Interesting. So yeah, I guess Bezzecchi and then Maverick Vinales. Oh, so Enea Bastianini and Maverick Vinales are going to be the riders at Tech 3 KTM, which is what right now is Gas. You have Aprilia's Jorge Martin and Marco Bezzecchi. Ducati, of course, we mentioned will be Pecco Bagnaia and Marc Marquez next year. Fabio Quartararo stays at Yamaha. Honda has Luca Marini, and we don't know who will be there in the second bike. KTM, Red Bull KTM, Brad Binder, Pedro Acosta. So right now, the second seat at both Yamaha and Honda are open. Both 6 Ducati bikes are open now. The 2 for 2 bikes for Grassini, the VR46, if they stay at Ducati, might end up changing to Yamaha. We don't know. The Premac Ducati team. So all those bikes are open right now. And then you have the LCR Hondas, teammates with Johan Zarco. And then the Trackhouse Aprilia team, which I would venture to say one of those bikes would be going to Joe Roberts, coming to MotoGP after many years in Moto2. So that'll be something if and when that comes off. So it's been a very active rider market this year, with plenty to be decided in terms of Ducatis. I mean, you have same spec, or basically the same spec as the factory team at Pramac, and then year-old bikes for Grassini and VR46. VR46 stays if Valentino Rossi's team stays there. Honda's 2 bikes. Aprilia, the factory team, made changes, full changes, so Aprilia could end up with 4 new riders after what they've had for the last few years. The standings going into Assen for MotoGP, Jorge Martin is 18 points out of Pecco Bagnaia. Marc Marquez is third, 22 points out of Enea Bastianini. Pedro Acosta fourth, a point ahead of Maverick Vinales there. So those are the riders in MotoGP. In Moto2, Sergio Garcia has a 7-point lead on Joe Roberts. And then third is Ayagura, Alonso Lopez, Gonzalez in fifth. The Manny Ramirez teammate to Roberts is 11th in points there. I'm be remiss to mention, I mentioned Tony getting into semifinals, but him and Leah are expecting their first child in November, and they will be having a boy. So congratulations, Tony. That is going to be outstanding. He said it on Speed Freaks that he's going to be sitting in the waiting room with cooler of beer and snacks while Leah's pregnant or giving birth, and they're going to put the baby through the car wash thing, and then he'll come in and hold the baby. But we'll see what happens with that. We'll find out in November, so a few months away from that. So big news for Tony and Leah. So congratulations to them. Rally Poland is this coming weekend. The motor, so WRC. Try to bring that up. Yeah, World Rally Championship racing this weekend. Rally Poland. Except I'll go and do that. Clicked on something and I don't want that. Damn it. That's Rally TV. Entry list. Oh, it's the 80th Rally Poland. Who knew that? Sebastian Ogier. So then in terms of the Rally 1, there will be 9 cars. Thierry Neuville, the points leader, Otanek, his teammate, Efren Evans, Sebastian Ogier, and Takamoto Katsuda for Toyota. Andreas Mikkelsen in a third Hyundai, and then the 2 Fords. There's 3, and then Toyota has 4. There's a 3, 6. And then M Sport's gonna have 3 cars as well. I'm not even gonna bother to try what that name is. for the third guy. Adrian Formeau and Gregoire Munster, the two regulars. And then trying to go through here, see if there's anybody or Mexican, Polish, yeah, both man mostly, and they're in Rally 3. All right, so we'll see what happens with that in terms of the World Rally, what the standings are right now. Thierry Neuville has an 18-point lead on his teammate Otanek, tied with Elfrin Evans as well. So we'll see how that all works out. Ogier's fourth, and he's only raced in 4 rounds. So we'll see how he does. And then Formula E, last but not least, bring that up. Portland E-Prix doubleheader. The standings heading into Portland E-Prix. Nick Cassidy for Jaguar is 25 points out of Pascal Wehrlein, drives for Porsche. Cassidy's teammate and buddy Mitch Evans, the defending, or not the defending champion, but is a further, he's 35 points back. Oliver Rowland is in fourth. Jake Dennis, the defending world champion, is fifth. Sean-Eric Vergne sixth. Antonio Felix da Costa, Gunther Van Dorn, former world champion, and then Jake Hughes rounds out the top 10. So, and then in teams, Jaguar has a huge points lead. Was it 73-ish? Yeah, 73-point lead on Porsche. Great battle between Nissan, DS, Penske, and Andretti. Only 4 points separating those 3 teams in the constructors' battle. So we'll see how that Mandura rounding out the cellar there. 7 points out of 10th and 10 points out of 9th behind ERT, which is pretty shitty. But because Mahindra has 4 power units, they're able to get ahead of ERT that way. Stellantis, which I'm trying to think, who are the Stellantis? Stellantis. I'm trying to remember what the Stellantis cars are. Oh well, whatever. I'll one of these days I'll find out. Yeah, so let's go and make our do our preview. I mean, Austria is one of the shorter tracks, Josh, that Formula One races at. Basically a minute, or a little over a minute for a lap, going all the way back to COVID time. That was the first race they had in the 2020 calendar that year. So, definitely a challenging track. Definitely, you have track limits issues, but in the end, and this will be a sprint weekend. So there you go. One practice session early in the morning, then they'll have sprint qualifying in the morning, late in the morning, our time. Then the sprint itself will be early in the morning. They'll have qualifying afterwards. So sprint weekend, short track. You wonder, it's probably one where it's a combination downforce wise. You want to have high downforce, but they have long straightaways, hard braking zones, so multiple passing areas and DRS in terms of the picks, I picked first last week, so Josh, you get first dibs here. Who do you say will win, and who will be the podium for the Austrian Grand Prix? Yeah. All right. Uh, Solid and definitely very likely, I would think, depending on qualifying. For me, Fish Lips, I'll go for the win there. I'll also pick Lando Norris for second, and my third place finisher will be Sir Lewis Hamilton. So we just deviated on which Mercedes will get on the podium there. But yeah, basically, yeah, repeating results from Sunday. So we'll see how that works. Of course, the sprint weekend adds a little bit of a bit of intrigue, but we'll see what happens with that. Uh, we'll get to the truck series first. The Rackley Roofing 200. Spencer Boyd got Mike Hillman Jr. to be his crew chief. So yeah, I don't know why he would do that to himself, but so be it. The point standings heading into Nashville: Corey Heim, of course, 4 wins. Christian Eckes, Nick Sanchez both have 2 wins. Raja Caruth, 4th. Majeski, Taylor Gray, Tyler Ankrum, Ben Rhodes, Tanner Gray, and Grant Infinger rounding out the top 10. Stuart Friesen's minus 26. Daniel Dye's minus 37, and Matt Crafton minus 46 in 13th. And then you add another 6 points, yeah, so 52 points out is Chase Purdy. And that's really it, you know. I think once you get past Crafton, you need to win a race, and we're running out of races in the regular season because, of course, it's the trucks. They had 3 weeks off. Now they're going to race 3 out of 4 weeks. They'll have an off week after Nashville, but then they'll race Pocono and then IRP. And after that, they'll only have 1 race to go in their regular season. So that's interesting how that'll all play out. So only 4 races to go in the regular season for the truck series. I talked about the points. Get the entry list. Butter Bean Brendan Queen will be making his debut on a cookie cutter track this weekend for Tricon. You have Clint Boyer driving the Spire number 7. Let's see here. Akinori Ogata is going to be in the 20 for Youngs for whatever reason. Frankie Muniz going to make his truck debut for Rium Brothers. Rackley War will have 2 trucks in the Rackley Roofing 200 with Ty Dillon and then Dawson Sutton, their late model driver. Rium Brothers But is it they're going to have 3 trucks, actually, or at least attempt to have 3 trucks? Keith McGee in a 3rd truck there. Doza randomly showing up. Go through some of these other people. Yeah, Connor Jones. Stephen Parsons. It's a home game for the Henderson team, so of course they'll race. I don't know if Spencer Boyd had it says Jeffrey Hammond. I'm assuming it's Jeff Hammond, but now it's Mike Hillman Jr. Mason Maggio. So they have 39 trucks, so I guess 3 will go home. I will start first here, and I'll pick Corey Heim because why not? I think if we picked Corey Heim the rest of the season, it wouldn't be a bad pick anyways. My wild card selection, I have to go to the points just as a backup, just to confirm how many drivers have raced every race this year. We got 21, 25, 6. So yeah. I could go with any of those. Yeah, I could go with I could go with that, but I am going as my wild card. I will go with Butterbean Queen. So all Tricon selections for me on the truck series. NASCAR trucks at Nashville. Phil goes with Corey Heim to win, and Brendan Queen wild card. How about you, Josh?
I think for me, I'm gonna go with Christian. Yeah, I'll go with Christian Eckes, current points leader, to win here at Nashville. And my wild card, I'll go a little out there and go with Clint Boyer to be my wild card.
Yeah, I just refused on under multiple.
Well, I know.
Yeah, and that's I just couldn't do it. I was probably gonna throw up on myself if I did pick them. So instead of puking live on air, I passed and let you do that, and probably Clint Boyer will get a top 5 finish or somehow or another. Guy couldn't drive a hot nail through snow for I don't know how many years at the end of his career, but then he'll get a top 5 in a truck. He'll prove, and he'll be a bad example for people who talk about being high or drunk driving, since he's been known to do that. We'll move on to the Xfinity Series, the Nash Tennessee Lottery 250. 39 for 38, one car will go home. We got Dawson Cranbeck in the 4, Smithley in the 6, Keebler Gibbs will be in the 19, John Hunter in the 20, Tyler Reddick will be in the Sam Hunt 26. That's interesting. The 35, no driver as of now, are listed there. You got 74, doesn't have anybody listed either. Carson Kvapil will be driving the 88. Ross Chastain in the 92 for DGM. Emmerling and Fincham, they're for SS Greenlight. Fincham will be driving a Chevrolet, but the sponsor's Ted Russell Ford of Knoxville. And then Noah Gagson in the Rhett Jones Racing Ford. So, bunch of Cup guys here this coming weekend at Nashville, interestingly. So, Josh, you get first dibs on the Xfinity Series at Nashville.
Yeah, this is a very Cup-heavy field that we have this week, which feels kind of interesting there. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go Cup here, and I'm just gonna pick Ty Gibbs to win here at Nashville. So yeah, it's gonna be very Cup-heavy weekend here. But yeah, I think wild card. Damn, it's interesting here. There's a lot of good cars here that can go, but I'm gonna go pick. I guess. Damn, I'm gonna pick Matt DiBenedetto as my wild card this weekend.
Yeah, after last week getting DQ'd, I'm sure he wants to go and recover. The street course is probably not going to be in his favor the following week. So, Matt DiBenedetto wild card. For me, I'm going to go with you got John Hunter Nemechek out there, and probably would be the easy or right call. But I'm going to go Tyler Reddick. Probably personal bias because of being a fan, but I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick to win and give Sam Hunt Racing their first victory, I think that would be, if that does happen, which he also won for the 48 team, the big machine team. He's won for Junior Motorsports. He's won for RCR. So I'm gonna say Tyler Reddick gets the victory there. And then we look at drivers 23, another 26, 27. Yeah, basically 14. And then my wild card will be it's basically a throwaway, but I'll go with Buckshot Jones because he's there. He essentially qualifies because he's just outside. He's on the bottom end of that top half cutoff there, or he's right there, right next to it, and so I'm actually going with Buckshot Jones. I almost thought I was gonna have to take Clint Boyer. I passed. I didn't throw up. So because I know Jeb Burton hasn't done shit all year, and some of these other cars, it's just asking for trouble to really. If I wanted a caution, I could have taken Miss Hummer 2.0. If we could bet that would be good because she brings out a caution every single week. I would have. I guess that would have been something if I went with Brennan Poole, but yeah, I don't like him either. I should have just went with Parker Retzloff since I think we pick him every single week, but I didn't. I decided to go with Buckshot Jones. So be it. Cup Series at Nashville, the Ally 400. For the NASCAR Cup Series. That'll be an afternoon race this year. Has been a night race in the past, so big NBC will be an afternoon race. 38 for 40. So nobody going home. Chastain in the Busch Country Chevrolet, former winner, of course, at Nashville. Gumby Cindric with Discount Tire. Brestree for Bald Spot. Overstock.com for Josh Berry. Consumer Cellular for Keselowski. Garner Trucking for LaJoy. Zone and Thornton's for Kyle Busch. Bass Pro Shops in Winchester for Gagson. FedEx back on the 11 for Denny Hamlin. Menards and Ideal Garage Doors for Blaney. Rush Truck Centers and Cummins for Chase Briscoe. Monster Energy Zero Sugar for Riley Herbst. Celsius for AJ Allmendinger. Busher will have Bill Submarines. Bass Pro for Martin Truex. DeWalt for Christopher Bell. Dex Imaging for Harrison Burton. Columbia Sportswear for Bubba Wallace. Valvoline back on the Byron car 2 weeks in a row. Hemrick with Circle. Loves and Fleet Guard for McDowell. Generator for Gilliland. Haas Tooling for Priest. Massey Motor Freight, whatever that is, for Nemechek. Family Dollar for Jones. Monster Energy for Reddick. Artisano Hawaiian and Oscar Mayer for O'Richard. Pinnacle Home Improvement for Justin Haley. Interstate Batteries on the 54. Chad Fincham in the 66 for Carl Long. Cooper and Hunter, whatever that is. Jockey Outdoors by Luke Bryan for Zane Smith. Ziegler Auto Group for Carson Osavar. Tootsie's for Nacho Libre, and then Mobile One 50th Anniversary Corey Heim. So that's why he's not in the Xfinity car, because he's going to be in the Cup car. So, all right. My pick to win this weekend in the Cup Series. I'm going to go with Martin Truex this weekend. I picked him a few times, I think, this year, so probably tells you I shouldn't pick him, but Martin Truex to win, and my wild card pick for this weekend would be... Yeah, I'm going to go with it. Why not? Josh Berry. Because he's on a heater. I wonder how long he is going to be in this situation, because I think that 4-car could win here in this next few weeks, even though the bigger tracks haven't been so good to Ford. They've been on a good string of races, so those are my picks. 2 guys connected to Junior. Josh being the Junior fan. Will you continue down that path?
I'm gonna pick Chase Elliott to win, which former Junior Sports driver. So, and he did win 2 years ago, in Nashville back in 2022. So, I'm gonna pick him to win, continue his streak of finishing in the top 20 to start out the season here for Chase Elliott. So pick him to win, and we'll go with another kind of sort of junior pick here with Carson Hocevar, my wild card. I think he can run well on a concrete track. We've seen him run well. Of course, Bristol last year when he stepped in the 42, ran well there the whole night there, and I think he can go out and run well here in Nashville. Of course, grew up a Junior fan, and he was in that Junior Motorsports Dirt Mode Media studio when he's making his pitch for vote in fan award or fan vote driver for the All-Star race earlier this year. So yeah, that's definitely who I'm picking as my wild card. You there?
All right. So yeah, we got our picks in for this week, and we'll see how we do. As I always say, bet responsibly, but if you really do want to bet, Josh's picks are usually the ones to go with. And speaking of Josh and making picks and going out there and putting it all on the line, you were doing that this past weekend. So tell us all about it in the sim/go-karting segment.
So yeah, I went to the go-kart track this weekend out in Orlando. Did they have a weekly karting league that they do there called the League of Legends. So I did this a couple weeks ago. I told you about it and Joe about it, and decided to try out and go again here. So they do 2 races in the rental karts, and then they have one session in the I guess they call it like kind of their pro kart league that they have, where it's kind of a professional styled go-kart that they have where you can bring your own. But I just did the 2 rental ones where they have kind of like the bumpers around it, and they're pretty heavy and everything, and they got a 270cc engine in there, and you're mixed in. So in those 2 sessions, the rentals, they also have a faster version called the Pro Rental, which is a 370 or 390cc engine there, but it's the same chassis as the 270. So ran that both the 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. session. The first one, they just, I don't know. I mean, they assign you by random for the karts, but I didn't get a good engine, I guess, in the kart that I was in, and the engine like kept shutting off, so I had to keep flagging a corner worker to come help me start the engine. It was everything. So I didn't do as well. I mean, was down on power kind of, and I probably should have pulled into the pits during the warm up and asked for a different kart, but I thought I could handle it. And for the first half of that race, I thought I was doing okay and was maintaining, but then as soon as I lose momentum and everything from the faster karts and the other class passing by, you get eaten alive, and you really notice the power difference there. So I think I started in like, I don't know, because it's like 55 people that did this or so, and I started in like 43rd place and ended up in 47th. So I didn't really lose too much, but certainly felt like I did, feeling like I was down on power throughout the first session. But then the second session, I had a better kart and qualified. I think 54 entered. So between the 2 classes, so 54 people total on track on like a, I don't know, like 7/10 of a mile or so go-kart track. So and everything, and I think out of 54, qualified 40th, and then, or qualified 47th actually. Yeah, qualified 47th out of 54, finished in 40th. So I gained 7 positions. Some of it on track. It was to be able to hang tough on some corners to be able to get around people, and then others like people wiping out and you get by them. So yeah, kind of carrying over what I learned racecraft wise in the sim on iRacing, figuring out how to get around people and timing, when to go and make the pass and all that stuff. Learning how to do that in the sim, definitely carrying that over some into real life. But it definitely is when you're actually racing people, and especially when they're in equal karts, and you're actually, one of the ways they even equalize it more is that everybody has to be at least 185 pounds. I'm 150 and are around that with shoes on, so I have to add about 35 to 40 pounds of weight to my kart, whereas somebody that's maybe like closer to 185 is dealing with less weight than what they're normally used to. So having to adjust to that is a challenge, and everything. And having, you're actually racing against people that are going around the same pace. It's definitely hard to, make moves and stuff. And so you're really just, trying to wait for them to make a mistake and just capitalize at that opportunity, or, try to get a better corner and, make them bail if you're side by side going into another corner. So yeah, that was kind of my strategy there. Definitely need to be better on the starts. I think last week I thought I did okay on the start, but they changed where they were doing the start for this race, I guess, and I ended up being on the line that was compromised because I guess going into kind of a chicane, you want to be on the inside going into the corner, or not the outside. So I was on the outside starting there, not the inside going into the chicane. So lost some positions there, wasn't able to kind of squeeze my way in there to make it into the corner and everything. So it was pretty fun though. So enjoyed it. And I don't think I'd be able, I can do it week to week, but I would have to, because it is a weekly league, but I have to be traveling back and forth to Orlando for that. And I still have work on Friday, or every other Friday I have work. So have to go, factor that in and stuff. So we'll see, but try to do it maybe every other week or so, or as long as I don't have any plans or anything like that and I'm in town. So but it's fun. So looking forward to the next, I guess, chance to go out and do that and run, and definitely hopefully continue to get faster there and compete. Don't know if I'd actually win. It definitely takes, I think you have to be going there pretty regularly to be fast enough to win, but definitely looking forward to being able to compete in that, and otherwise and everything. So looking forward to racing in that again at some point during the summer, although they'll have it again during the fall, winter time. So it's pretty fun to do that. Of course, I actually did do a little bit of iRacing too, and ran GT4s at Watkins Glen, ran in the rain some, and ran Formula Fords at Brands Hatch. Won the pole in my last race there, but then screwed up one of the corners and spun out, but managed to recover and finish in third. So that was still a decent result there, but had a shot to kind of win, or at least compete for one, and kind of threw it away trying to hold on to the lead and everything. So but that's fine. So we'll continue improving on the open wheel and sports car side, try to improve my ranking there to open up, I guess, the opportunity to compete in some of the higher level sports car classes, like for IMSA and possibly even for IndyCar there, so I can have that eligibility there to do that stuff. So we'll continue on with that throughout the year, and the karting stuff as well. But I guess at some point maybe I have to buy a GoPro for the karting stuff, so you can actually have some onboard content there. But we'll see. So or maybe get like a phone attachment or something to do that. But I have to look at that. But as always, when if I ever stream or whatever for iRacing, can always go on Twitch TV at USailor2 and go on there, see all the streams and everything, and go on there and watch that. Of course, Twitter at JP Huffline, go on there and see all my opinions. Of course, with Twitter kind of being a little bit more restrictive on likes, I guess that's nice. You don't have to worry about what if you accidentally hit something or whatever. But at the same time, does see kind of what you were thinking or what you might have been thinking in regards to stuff. So have to be more active in tweeting and stuff on there, but definitely always able to engage in the discussion there. But yeah, at JP Huffline on Twitter, and then of course our YouTube channel at Groove Shooter Podcasts. Go on there and subscribe and like our page and everything. So yeah, it's another week of racing, and definitely had a lot of interesting storylines that played out this week. But looking forward to seeing how Nashville, especially, like that track. So seeing how that plays out and what we end up talking about next week.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the news for the 19 car will come out, so I'll probably be on and be pretty happy about that, since Chase has been driving around in a tub of crap for the better part of his entire Cup career. So we'll talk about that, but we'll also talk about all the racing that takes place this coming weekend. You can find our show at Gripstrip Pod on Twitter. You can find me at Philip or PG Matthew 28 on Twitter. You can find me Philip G Matthew 28 on Insta. PhilipGMatthew.com and is one of the places you can find the show if the executive producer would actually post it. And also, as Josh mentioned, the YouTube page, and basically anywhere you get podcasts, you can get the Gripstrip podcast. So with that, for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks for listening to Gripstrip Podcast, and we will see you next time.